You so much for tuning into my channel where we talk about leaders growing into exceptional leaders. And today I want to talk about self sabotage. I think sometimes leaders don't even realize that they're getting in their own way or they're not showing up the way we really need them to show up. So, a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Christina Holly. I am a performance coach. I have my own coaching company. I help organizations build work cultures that thrive. I really focus in on leadership and coaching and getting people in the best position so they can unleash this amazing potential that resides within. So today on we're going to talk about self-sabotage. And I think, I've been doing this a long time. I've been working with people for over 25 years. And let me tell you, self-sabotage is definitely there for many leaders. Sometimes we don't even realize that we have jumped into this space and we may be getting in the way of what our intentions are just because of how we're showing up. So, the how we show up in organizations is so important and it can reflect all parts of our lives. But really, we're going to talk about how it impacts our work environments. So, one of the first ones I really want to talk about is not, things are going to happen in the workplace. Sometimes things go great and then sometimes, things don't go so well. So let's say you make a mistake, let's say things aren't perfect. And instead of learning how to be resilient and bump the or navigate whatever the challenge is and be able to push forward, you start going into this place where you're putting yourself down. When you put yourself down, you're automatically going to be attracting in a lot of negativity, and it's really hard to get yourself out of that space. So I really want you to be mindful of when things don't necessarily go as planned. Maybe, something wasn't perfect. The objective is learn from it and navigate whatever the situation is. Learn, what did you learn, and then move into this new space. And when you do that, it will be amazing what you will attract in. But if you're doing the opposite and you're down on yourself and you're having negative self-talk and really criticizing, you're really not helping yourself or your team. So I really want you to be mindful of you, if the language that you're using when you speak to yourself, and whether or not you're assisting or are you just really kind of slowing the momentum of your own personal growth there. The second one I would say that really stands out for me is procrastination. I know I've been guilty of it in university many times, waiting to the last minute to get something done. When you put yourself in that position, you're actually adding a lot of additional stress that is not necessary. And the bigger question, if you were to ask me, I'm like, why are we procrastinating? Why are we putting it off? What are we not liking about the task at hand that you are putting it off, which in the end ends up you having you being rushed and probably a little bit irritable, or you're under stress and you're not going to be as effective as possible. That is a self-sabotage move. So you want to make sure that you are aware if you are doing stuff like that so you can avoid it. So when you have something that comes up, here's a tip: plan it out, right? Work backwards from the date. And when you work backwards from the date, you can kind of be like, okay, you can allocate the time effectively. But leaving everything to the last minute is probably not going to help you in the long run, especially if it's some sort of deadline that you have to meet. When you do that, you're actually adding more stress to yourself, and the probably your product will not be your work product will probably not be as efficient as it could be, right? Sometimes when we're rushing along to get stuff done, there could be errors in it. So these are things that we can do to avoid self-sabotage. Another one would be not dwelling on failures. So I've seen this happen many times in workplaces, and this is where I really believe that you can see leaders emerge. They, people who failure is going to happen if you are actually growing and working in an environment where you're learning. It's what you do with the failure. I have seen leaders completely derail themselves because of a failure and not know how to pivot or pick themselves up. And I'll tell you, that is all on you. How you manage and how you work through when things don't go to plan will make the biggest difference in how you show up as a leader and what you need to kind of bring forth to the next level. Disappointment is a part of the equation, but is how do you manage it? And if you're stuck in a place of failure, a pity party, or you're feeling like, oh no, this isn't going to work, um, it's really going to have a big impact on you, and it will have a big impact on your team. So I would definitely suggest that you are mindful of when these situations arise. How are you showing up? Are you dwelling on the failure, or are you focusing on the learning? That will be a game changer in how you show up at work, and as a leader. So I'm just going to modify my camera a little bit. It seems to be a little bit off. There we go. I think that's a little bit better. So that number 3 is dwelling on failures. The next one is, how are you in your relationships at work? Are you a team player? Are you a negative Nancy? Are you always complaining about things? Are you actually making a difference? Are you working well? Are you collaborating? Are you creative in your space with your colleagues? That is going to make a big difference. If you are an individual who is sabotaging because they have a need to micromanage or control things to an excess, then you only can blame yourself here, because people are not going to want to work with you in the same way. You have to learn to pivot or to be able to work alongside with others um, in a different way. So you're not putting people down, you're actually lifting people up so they can work well to achieve the goal. So I want you to be mindful of that one. Another one is your overall well-being. Are you self-sabotaging your well-being? What do you do for your self-care plan? And I can tell you, this is like a really, really important one. I feel as though there's many individuals who get this off. This is the first thing that goes when stress hits or something doesn't go to plan, is the self-care plan, because you don't put yourself as a priority. Self-care plans are extremely important because they help you be grounded as you're going through. But if you take that grounding away, then you're more likely going to fall apart. So I always say this, it's like a cell phone, right? It's keeping yourself charged as you go. If you actually let a phone drain through where there is nothing, then it's always harder to pick itself up. That is self-sabotage there, right? Think of you as a human doing the exact same thing. If you are learning how to manage and take care of yourself and charge yourself as you go, then your health and your well-being will be in a much better position. So things like, what do you do to keep you charged up? Like, are you meditating? Do you go for walks? Do you work out? Do you hang out with your pets? Do you hang out with your friends? These are real things that you can do and actively bring into your life. So it makes a big difference in how you show up. So you're not self-sabotaging. You're not forfeiting your well-being in order to show up at work. Because I'll tell you, when you do that, eventually you end up being no good to anyone, and you could put yourself on the verge of burnout. Another one would be, self self-sabotage your overall self-esteem, which I think we kind of already talk about. Like, do you believe in yourself, or are you undercutting yourself all the time? And the way we speak to ourselves, the language we use, is very, very important. Are you speaking to yourself the same way that you would speak to someone that you really care about? Or are you being much more critical and difficult on yourself, where you're feeling pretty defeated? Nobody else is doing that. You're doing that to yourself. So when you think about that, that is something to take into consideration. So those are a couple that things that we need to be aware of in order to not get in our own way when we are showing up at work. And I think it's really important to understand that this is a part of the equation, and we can't just dismiss it like it's no big deal. You own this. And when you own it, it makes a big difference in how you can hold yourself accountable and show up differently. So before blaming an organization or blaming a leader or blaming someone else, did you look at in the mirror first? And these are some examples. Did you show up well before you even start? So this is just something, one of the tips and tricks I wanted to share. But I think it's really important to be mindful that you're not getting in your own way. So if this resonates, subscribe to the channel. You'll get more updates, but I will be on a regular basis talking about leadership on a deeper level and really helping you show up in the best way. So thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.